Miss Birdie, Martha said. We choose her. Before Franklin could reach them, both girls crossed the main street and took the Apache horse trainer's hands while half the town laughed. Franklin stepped beside them, his palm settling above his colt, but Birdie kept her eyes on a mine mule shying from a rust-red trickle in the trough. Don't draw, she said. Listen to the animal. Lily tucked herself beneath Birdie's woven shawl. Martha held the woman's other hand and stared back at the pointing townspeople with all the stubborn courage a 12-year-old could gather. Cyrus Whitaker waved a weathered debt note over their heads. There is your answer, Justice Walker. A debt-ridden cowboy letting his daughters choose an Apache woman over decent Christian homes. Franklin's hand tightened. Birdie glanced at it once. Your girls are watching, she said. That stopped him more surely than a drawn gun. Ignatius Walker, church elder and town justice, stood on the church steps. Cyrus had petitioned the county court to call Franklin's household unfit. He worked long cattle days, owed money from his wife's last illness, and had no woman in the house. Walker's recommendation in 3 weeks could keep Martha and Lily with their father or send them under county guardianship to Prescott. Walker cleared his throat. The girls were asked which respectable household they would accept for temporary placement. We answered, Martha said. The milliner's wife covered a smile with her glove. Lily pressed closer to Birdie, and Franklin hated that his child needed shelter from grown people's amusement. Birdie did not squeeze the girls as if claiming them. She merely stood with them. Her 2 dark braids hung over a plain cotton dress, and her face remained calm in the particular way of someone who had learned not to spend strength on every insult. Then the mule jerked its head from the trough and struck the ground with one forehoof. Birdie looked toward the upper canyon where Cyrus's silver mine sat behind a red clay holding dam. Your runoff is changing, she said. Cyrus lowered the note. Muddy water is not your concern. Animals do not refuse water for a jest. My mind does not answer to a stable woman. No, Birdie said. It appears not to answer to anyone. The laughter died unevenly. Walker shut his ledger. 3 weeks, Wilder. Put your household in order, or I will send my recommendation against you. Franklin wanted to tell him exactly where to put the recommendation. Instead, he looked at his daughters and made himself speak through his teeth. Yes, sir. Red Mesa lay 2 days east of Prescott, with its church on the only stone rise, and Cyrus's mine above the town. His money made his opinions travel faster than the truth. The crowd drifted away with its whispers. Birdie released the girls only after the street cleared. Take them home, Franklin, she said. He searched for something worthy to say. Nothing came. He knew drought and cattle, not what to say when his daughters chose another person, because home no longer felt steady. The ride home was quiet, except for wheels grinding over stone. Franklin kept his eyes on the team. At last, Martha spoke from the wagon bed. Miss Birdie asks, before she touches a frightened horse. Franklin glanced back. You are not horses. She asks Lily, too, before she fixes her braid or moves her out of the way. Martha's chin lifted. You never ask Pa. You decide, then tell us after. The words landed hard, because they were true. He had mistaken love for holding everything tight. His wife had died anyway, and since then, the whole house seemed to brace whenever he entered. I reckon I have, he said. Lily leaned around her sister. You could learn. Franklin faced the road again before they saw his expression. I reckon I could do that too. The next morning he found Birdie at the livery corral, circling a skittish roan with a loose rope and a quieter voice than most men used over supper. He waited at the rail until the gelding lowered its head. "I came to apologize," he said. Birdie stroked the roan's neck. "For the town? For standing there like I might answer every fool with a colt. That apology belongs to your girls. I gave it to them before breakfast." "Did they accept?" "Lily charged me half her biscuit." Birdie's mouth moved at one corner. A fair price. He almost smiled, then remembered why he had come. "They had no right to pull you into our trouble. I have trouble of my own." She nodded south. "I saved enough to lease the creek pasture beyond your spread. I mean to build a ring where women and girls can learn without being shamed." Cyrus had warned the landowner that the mine would stop buying hay if he leased to Birdie. "You want me to speak for you?" Franklin asked. "No. I want men like you to stop going silent when Cyrus speaks against me." He heard his mistake. "Tell me when to stand beside you." "When I ask. Until then, listen." For Franklin, listening was no small bargain. He nodded. 2 days later, Cyrus cornered him outside the feed store. The mine owner smelled of cigar smoke and coal oil. "I hear your cattle contract vanished," Cyrus said. Franklin went still. The rail buyer had withdrawn that morning without explanation. Behind Cyrus, his quiet bookkeeper, Edwin Brennan, tightened both hands around a leather ledger when Franklin's account was named. Cyrus tapped the debt note inside his coat. "Sign over the creek rights attached to your lease. I tear up your wife's account. Speak kindly to Walker and the girls remain with you. If the creek goes to the mine, my cattle have no water. You can find another spread. And Birdie loses the pasture." Cyrus smiled. "So you have begun calling her Birdie." Franklin stepped close enough to see the ash caught in the man's mustache. "The water stays with the land. My girls stay with me. And you will keep her name out of your mouth unless you can speak it civilly." Cyrus's smile thinned. 3 weeks can ruin a man. Franklin knew it was true. As Cyrus left, Edwin glanced back as if he meant to speak, then lowered his head and followed. That evening, Franklin stared at the unpaid account on his porch. Without the drive contract, he could not make the lease payment or satisfy Walker. Every road seemed to end at Cyrus's desk. Birdie rode up at dusk. She tied her dun mare at the rail, climbed the steps, and took the chair opposite him without ceremony. "Your daughters are packing," she said. The paper sagged in Franklin's hand. "Martha has 2 dresses and a tin cup under her bed. Lily is trying to take the barn cat." He scratches. "She says the county institution may need protection." A laugh escaped Franklin before grief closed around it. He covered his eyes. Birdie let the silence sit. "I will not be hired as a mother, and I will not let the town trade my presence for your water." "I would never ask it." "I know. That is why I came." She placed a folded list on the table. "A temporary public betrothal. I move into the tack room. Walker cannot call the household empty, and when my pasture lease is heard, you tell the truth about Cyrus's threat. Nothing more." Relief rose so fast it frightened him. "The town will tear at you. They already do." "We tell the girls the truth," she added. The list promised separate rooms, separate earnings, and an end after the hearing if either wished it. "You wrote rules. I have met men." "No, ma'am. I feel respectful terror." Her brief smile made him forget the debt note in his hand. He agreed without bargaining. Birdie moved into the tack room with 1 trunk, 2 blankets, a coffee pot, and more bridles than dresses. Martha carried her brushes. Lily announced that the barn cat approved. Franklin rose at 3, did every chore, and tried to bake biscuits. By sunrise, the kitchen smelled of smoke and defeat. Lily struck one biscuit against the table. "Pa, the roan needs a new shoe." Birdie tested another. "It may serve as the shoe." Martha dropped a bean into a tin cup. "Point for Miss Birdie." Later, Birdie found Franklin hauling a third bucket. "A partnership is not you doing everything while I watch. That is loneliness with an audience. I will not have Walker say I brought you here to labor, and I will not have you fall from your horse. We divide the work, and you sleep 6 hours. 5.5. From the window came the small clink of Martha awarding the bean. Their first true quarrel came at the market. The milliner's wife and 2 friends hemmed Birdie beside the apple barrels. "We only wonder whether your people know anything of raising Christian girls," the woman said. "Breaking horses is not the same as keeping a home." Franklin dropped the flour sack and crossed the street before he had decided what to do. Birdie saw him. She raised one hand, barely the width of her palm. "Stop!" He wanted to scatter the women with one shout, but Birdie had asked him to listen. He stopped close enough to be present and far enough not to take her voice. "A child is not a horse to be broken," Birdie said. "Nor is a horse if the handler has any sense. Franklin's girls know how to observe, speak plainly, and choose where they stand. I would call that a sound beginning." The milliner's wife flushed. "You are impertinent." "So I have been told by people asking impertinent questions." Birdie picked up her basket and walked away. At the wagon, Franklin said I still wanted to throw the apples. "At the women! At Cyrus's windows!" "I am learning." Martha dropped a bean into each side of the cup. That night, Franklin slipped 2 more beans into his own pile. In the morning, his coffee sat on top of the tin, and beside it lay a single purple aster. He carried the flower in his shirt pocket until the petals folded. Warmth entered quietly. Birdie taught Lily to braid rawhide. Martha read while Birdie mended tack. Franklin learned to ask, "Do you want help?" and bear the answer when it was no. He also learned Birdie forgot to eat when a horse challenged her. One afternoon he brought a canteen and a rye loaf to the livery. Birdie was teaching a miner's widow to mount without clutching the saddle horn. When the mare sidestepped, Birdie waited until horse and rider breathed again, then asked for one more circle. After the lesson, she nodded at the bread. "You have cattle." "They survived my absence." "Horses argue honestly," she said, tearing the loaf in half. "Unlike cowboys. Cowboys expect supper after losing." They ate beside the ring. At last, Birdie said, "A family near the San Carlos Road hired me to gentle a mare that had thrown their daughter. For 6 months, I was Miss Birdie in the corral, when visitors came. I ate behind the cookhouse. Once the girl could ride, her mother asked me to stop using the front gate." "What did you do?" "I left. They wanted my hands, not my presence." "I'm sorry." "Do not be sorry. Do not do the same." Franklin looked at the canteen between them. "Fear brought you into my house. I do not want it to be the only reason you remain." Her gaze held his. "Then give me another reason. Slowly." She returned to the ring before he could answer. He rode home knowing patience was the hardest work he had ever chosen. The next loaf he left on her saddle came home in 4 equal pieces. Birdie returned care. She never merely received it. One afternoon she hung small whistles around the girls' necks and brought her dun mare into the lower field. "One call means stop," she told them, sounding one sharp note. The mare halted. 2 notes sent the animal toward the stone feed shed on higher ground. 3 means, "Come back to me." Birdie blew 3 short whistles, and the mare turned at once, trotting to her shoulder. 3 means family," Lily's eyes widened. Does Pa get one? If he can make a sound. Franklin climbed the fence. I can whistle. He put 2 fingers to his mouth and produced a weak gust of air. The mare turned her head away. Birdie's eyes warmed. She has standards. Franklin tried again. The result was worse. Lily fell into the grass laughing, and even Martha forgot to keep score. Franklin laughed with them from somewhere he had believed the grave had taken. Birdie was watching him rather than the girls. The distance between them narrowed, and he wanted to know whether the warmth in her face belonged to him. Then Birdie looked away and adjusted the mare's bridle. Franklin respected the retreat, though it cost him. The next week he arranged herd work so he could be home when she returned. Birdie knew his excuse about the North Ridge was thin. She said nothing and began saving his supper beneath a tin plate. The house sounded wrong on evenings when her mare came late. Franklin heard that truth in himself and did not know what to do with it. Then the dust storm came. The wind died in the middle of the afternoon. Birds vanished from the fence line. The sky turned the color of old brass. Franklin ran from the barn as the first brown wall rolled over the flats. Birdie stood on the porch, pulling Lily inside. "Where is Martha?" he shouted. "She went to the creek after the brindled calf." The storm struck before he reached his horse. Dust erased the barn. Franklin's hands shook too badly to fasten the halter. His father had vanished in a storm. His wife had died while he stood helpless. In one breath, Martha became every person the frontier had taken. Birdie caught his wrist. "I have to find her." "You will ride blind and leave Lily fatherless. She is out there, and she listened when I taught her." Birdie stepped in front of him until he had no choice but to see her. "Trust what she knows." Then she turned toward the creek and blew 3 piercing whistles. The notes cut through the storm. They waited. Franklin strained toward the invisible pasture. Faintly, from the direction of the stone feed shed, 3 small whistles answered. His knees weakened. Birdie held his wrist until he steadied. When the wind eased, they found Martha in the shed with both arms around the brindled calf. Franklin dropped into the dirt and gathered his daughter against him. "I stopped when I could not see Martha," said into his coat. "Then I went uphill. Like Miss Birdie said. You did right." His voice broke. "You did exactly right." After the girls slept, Franklin found Birdie at the trough, dust floating in the lantern light. "I thought I had lost her," he said. Birdie waited. "I keep thinking if I work harder, hold tighter, see every danger first, nothing else will be taken." He stared into the water. "The girls chose you because I made our home feel like a fist. They chose me because they believed you would honor their choice." He looked at her. "You taught them their voices mattered," Birdie said. "Perhaps you forgot your own lesson." Franklin wanted to touch her hand. He did not. After the hearing, he asked, "Will you go?" Birdie's gaze moved toward the barn room where her trunk sat, packed more neatly than any permanent thing ought to be. "People want me when the horse is wild or the trail is lost," she said. "When danger passes, they remember what they call me behind doors. I do not." "You did not know me before the danger." The truth of that silenced him. Birdie leaned over the trough. "Bring the lantern closer." A rusty stain drifted through the water. The copper smell was stronger than it had been in town. Franklin followed the thin, red current toward the feeder ditch. "The mine reservoir." "The storm shook loose more clay," Birdie said. "Water is bleeding beneath the dam." At first light, they rode to the mine office. Birdie explained the red seepage, the mule's refusal, and the tremor she had felt through the livery posts during the storm. Cyrus listened from his porch, smoking. You expect me to halt a mine because a horse shied at dirty water? The mule smelled metal and fresh earth, Birdie said. The seep is carrying red clay from beneath your wall. My engineer inspected it in spring. It is not spring. Cyrus looked at Franklin. Control your house guest. Franklin stepped off the porch rail. She is the only person here speaking sense. Through the open office door, Edwin Brennan stood over a column of figures. His pen had stopped moving. He looked from Cyrus to the canyon, then back to the page. Birdie glanced at Franklin, not to stop him this time, but to measure whether he would go too far. He kept his hands open. Lower the reservoir, Franklin said. Send men to the dam. If she is wrong, you lose a day. If she is right, you save the town. Cyrus's face hardened. 3 days until Walker gives his recommendation. I suggest you worry about your own ruin. He turned his back. Birdie and Franklin rode home in silence. At the fork to the ranch, she reined in. You listened, she said. I nearly put him through his own door. But you did not. Do I receive a bean? Half. It was the nearest she had come to praise, and it carried him through 2 sleepless nights. Cyrus called Birdie a panic maker, seeking cheap land. Men who trusted her with their horses crossed the street rather than be seen with her. Franklin saw the strain in her shoulders each evening. He knew better than to promise the town would change. Instead, he sat beside the barn door while she cleaned tack. I believe you, he said. Birdie kept rubbing oil into the leather. That may not save anyone. No, but you will not stand alone while they refuse to hear you. Her hands slowed. The afternoon before the hearing, bruised clouds gathered over the canyon, while the town remained under a blue sky. A low rumble rolled down from the mine. Franklin and Birdie were loading flour into the buckboard when every horse on the street lifted its head at once. Birdie dropped the sack. The rumble deepened into a roar. She put 2 fingers to her mouth and blew 3 sharp whistles. High ground, she shouted. Get to the church! No one moved until Martha and Lily blew their whistles and ran for the stone steps. Franklin climbed onto the buckboard. You heard her. Leave the wagons. Take the children uphill. The upper end of the street vanished behind a churning wall of red mud, timber, and stone. Panic broke the crowd apart. Birdie seized a loose team before it trampled a woman with a baby. Cut the traces! Franklin drew his knife, slashed the leather, and sent the horses free toward the open slope. He lifted 2 children onto the church steps, then waded back into mud rising above his boots. Cyrus's buggy came racing from the mine road. A heavy strongbox bounced behind him. Out of the way! Cyrus shouted, whipping his team. The buggy struck a buried trough and overturned. Cyrus disappeared beneath one wheel, his leg pinned beside the box. For half a heartbeat, every threat and stolen contract stood between them. Birdie caught Franklin's eye from across the street. Bring him, she said. Not forgive him, bring him, because leaving a man to drown would change Franklin. Franklin plunged into the current. He and the baker dragged the strongbox aside, freed Cyrus, and hauled him toward the church as the main surge tore through the feed store. A timber struck Franklin's hand. Pain flashed up his arm, but he kept moving. Help! Someone shouted from the mine office balcony. Edwin Brennan clung to the railing above a collapsing porch. A leather satchel was strapped across his chest, dragging him sideways whenever the current struck the posts. Birdie looped a rope around her waist and shoved the other end at Franklin. Anchor me! The balcony dropped at one corner as she fought through the red water. Franklin wrapped the rope around a hitching post and braced with his good hand while 2 liverymen took hold behind him. Birdie reached Edwin as the railing tore loose. She caught his coat, fastened the rope beneath his arms, and struck the buckle of the satchel free from a broken board. "Leave the books!" Franklin shouted. Edwin shook his head wildly. "They are the only truth I have left." "Then hold them high," Birdie said. Franklin and the liveryman hauled both of them through the current. Edwin collapsed on the church steps with the satchel pressed beneath him. "You came back," he gasped. Birdie looked toward the families still running below. "So will you, when you can stand." She was gone before he answered. From a wagon bed, Birdie sent people to the stone steps, boys to the schoolhouse roof, and liverymen to open every stall. She put a rope into the milliner's wife's hands. Martha and Lily repeated every command. 3 whistles sounded again and again through the red haze, until even the mockers obeyed. Birdie was the last to climb the church steps. Inside, townspeople huddled between the pews, soaked and shaking. Franklin counted his daughters twice. Birdie counted everyone, then sat. Lily crawled into her lap without asking. Then she remembered, drew back and whispered, "May I?" Birdie closed her eyes for one brief second. "Yes." She wrapped the child in her shawl. Franklin sat beside them, injured hand against his chest. While mud thundered past the church, the feeling inside him became too plain to deny. He did not merely need Birdie. He wanted the life near her, a house where people asked, answered, returned care, and left room for one another. By morning, the main street lay buried, but no one in town had died. Praise came quickly and badly. People who had ignored Birdie called her a wonder. She accepted none of it. At the ranch, she sat on the porch, cleaning mud from a bridle. Her trunk remained packed in the tack room. Franklin approached with his hand wrapped in a poor bandage. "They want to honor you at the town hall," he said. "I do not want to be their wonder," I told them. Her hands stopped. "I told them you read the water and the horses. You gave the warning. We followed because you knew what you were doing." Franklin sat on the step below her. Cyrus tried to say, "I led the rescue." I corrected him in front of everyone. Birdie looked down at him. Something in her guarded expression loosened. "I want the pasture," she said. "At the price offered before Cyrus threatened the owner. I want my name on the lease, not yours." "You should have it." "I will argue my own case." "I know." Franklin lifted his bandaged hand. "Tell me where to stand." Birdie set aside the bridle and unwrapped his clumsy knot. Her fingers were cool and careful against his bruised skin. "Beside me," she said. He wanted to kiss her and ask her to remain, but gratitude, danger, and the girls made the moment unfair, so he held still. Birdie retied the linen and looked at him for a long moment. "You are learning restraint. It is unpleasant. It becomes you." He smiled. "That sounds nearly kind. Do not grow proud." 3 days later, Walker held the hearing in the mud-stained church. Cyrus sat in the back with a cane and the debt note in one fist. Walker cleared his throat. "Miss Quaid's actions weigh strongly in favor of stability in the Wilder household. Yet the court must know whether this betrothal is genuine." Birdie went still. If she claimed permanence for the girls, the town would take her choice. If she denied it, Cyrus would use the answer. Franklin stepped forward. "The arrangement began as a convenience," he said. A whisper moved through the church. Cyrus smiled. Franklin looked only at Birdie. "I accepted because I was afraid of losing my daughters, afraid of needing help, afraid that if I loosened my grip, everything I loved would be taken." He took off his hat. "Birdie owes me nothing. Not motherhood, not gratitude, not a promise made for the comfort of this town." Martha and Lily released Birdie's hands and stepped back. Franklin saw them do it and loved them fiercely for understanding. He faced Birdie with no shield left. "But I am asking you now for myself. Stay after the hearing. Stay when the girls are grown and the house is quiet. Keep your work, your name on your gate, and every right to tell me when I am being a fool. I want mornings with you. I want your mare beside mine. I love you, and I would rather hear no from you than win yes from a trap." The church became utterly still. Birdie's eyes shone, but her voice remained steady. "If I stay, Birdie Quaid remains on the sign at my training ground. My earnings are mine to reckon. Decisions in that house are shared. You do not speak over me, even when you are angry." "Agreed. And I will not be your answer to every fear." "No." Franklin held out his hand, palm up. "You will be the woman I choose, if you choose me." Birdie looked at his open hand. His daughters had once chosen her while the town laughed. Now no child or danger held her in place. She put her hand in his. "Then I choose you, Franklin." Martha dropped a bean into the tin cup she had brought beneath her shawl. The sound was tiny, but half the church laughed through tears. Before Walker could speak, Edwin Brennan rose from the rear pew. His face was pale from the flood, and the rescued leather satchel rested at his feet. He carried a ledger and a sealed receipt down the aisle. "Miss Quaid pulled me from the mine office," he said. "Mr. Wilder held the rope. But that is not why I am speaking." Cyrus lurched upright. "Sit down, Brennan." Edwin's hands shook. His voice did not. "The Miners' Relief Fund paid Mrs. Wilder's medical account 2 years ago. Mr. Whitaker kept the receipt and altered the books so he could claim the debt and force the creek rights from Franklin." He placed the ledger before Walker. "I knew," Edwin said. "I told myself silence was the price of keeping my position. Yesterday, she risked her life to save a man who had done nothing to deserve it. I will not hide behind Cyrus's books again." The sheriff, who had lost his own house in the flood, placed a hand on Cyrus's shoulder and sat him down. The ledger stripped the last weapon from a man who had lost the town's obedience. Walker withdrew his recommendation. The creek remained with the ranch, and the pasture owner honored Birdie's original price. Birdie did not thank the room. She simply squeezed Franklin's hand once, then let go to speak for herself about the lease. 6 months later, a hand-painted board stood beside the south pasture gate. "Birdie Quaid horses, gentled riders taught." 3 town women circled the training ring under Birdie's watch. The milliner's wife was among them, sitting too stiffly in the saddle and listening with uncommon care. At the ranch, Franklin carried a saddle toward the fence as 3 short whistles rang over the mesquite. Martha and Lily rode from the barn on their ponies. Birdie followed on her dun mare, her shawl folded behind the saddle. Franklin opened the front gate and stepped aside. Birdie stopped just inside it. "You said you wanted the mornings after the girls were grown," she reminded him. "I did. That was a large claim for a man who still cannot whistle. I have other qualities. The bean cup disputes this." Franklin swung onto his horse. Birdie shifted her mare to leave room beside her rather than ahead or behind. He rode into that space. At the road, Lily blew 3 whistles. This time Franklin answered with a clear, sharp call of his own. Birdie turned, surprised. He tipped his hat. I listened. Her smile came unguarded beneath the morning sun. Together, they rode shoulder to shoulder through the open gate, while the girls raced ahead, and the sound that meant family carried over the Arizona high desert.